The laughter rippled through the playground, a sound so ordinary yet so devastating to Victoria Chen. She froze, coffee cup halfway to her lips, as she watched a bearded man with worn jeans and a faded flannel shirt push a curly-haired girl on the swing. The girl squealed with delight, demanding to go higher, Daddy, higher, while the man obliged with exaggerated sound effects that made his daughter dissolve into giggles. Victoria's gaze shifted to her own daughter. Emma sat perfectly still on the bench beside her, small hands folded in her lap, watching the pair with an intensity that made Victoria's chest tighten. 3 years of silence, 3 years of specialists, therapies, and desperate attempts to hear that voice again. 3 years since the accident that took David from them, leaving Victoria with an empire to run and a daughter who had retreated so far inside herself that sometimes Victoria feared she might never find her way back. The autumn wind scattered golden leaves across Lincoln Park's manicured grounds. This playground, nestled in one of Chicago's most exclusive neighborhoods, usually hosted nannies watching over their charges while tapping away at phones. Today, it was nearly empty except for the man and his daughter, who so obviously didn't belong here with their threadbare clothes and uninhibited joy. Victoria had brought Emma here on a whim. After cancelling a board meeting, something she'd never done before, she'd picked Emma up early from her private school, driven by an impulse she couldn't explain. No agenda, no therapeutic goal. Just a mother and daughter sitting on a bench on a Tuesday afternoon in October. "Would you like to try the swings?" Victoria asked softly, already knowing the answer would be a small headshake. Emma hadn't spoken since she was 2 years old, since the night Victoria had to explain that Daddy wouldn't be coming home from the hospital where he'd gone to help after the building collapse. The little girl had looked at her with eyes too comprehending for a toddler, nodded once and closed her mouth. The specialist said there was nothing physically wrong. Selective mutism, they called it, as if Emma had made a choice rather than built a fortress around her broken heart. To Victoria's surprise, Emma slid off the bench. Not toward the swings, but to a spot closer to where the man and girl were playing. She stood watching them, her small body rigid with attention. Victoria held her breath, recognizing the subtle shift in her daughter's posture that signaled interest rather than withdrawal. The man noticed Emma and smiled warmly. "Hi there," he called, his voice gentle, but carrying easily across the playground. "Would you like a turn? Lily and I can show you how to fly to the moon on these swings." Emma didn't respond, but she didn't retreat either. The man continued pushing his daughter, who was now making elaborate spaceship noises. "We're passing through the asteroid belt," he announced dramatically. "Quick, Lily, fire the laser cannons." "Pew, pew," shouted Lily, aiming imaginary weapons at invisible space rocks. "Daddy, there's an alien spaceship. It's green and has 27 eyes. Oh no!" The man clutched his chest in mock horror. "Are they friendly aliens?" "They want to steal our ice cream planet," Lily declared with absolute certainty. Victoria watched as something extraordinary happened. Emma's lips twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was the closest thing Victoria had seen in years. The man noticed too, and Victoria could read the gentle understanding in his eyes. He wasn't pushing for a response. He was simply making space for one. "You know," he said to no one in particular, "I hear these aliens only attack people who don't know the secret password." He leaned toward Lily conspiratorially, but spoke loud enough for Emma to hear. "The password is Tickle Monster." Lily erupted in giggles again, and to Victoria's astonishment, Emma took another step forward. She was now within arm's reach of the empty swing beside Lily. The man pretended not to notice, continuing his elaborate space narrative with his daughter. "Captain Lily, prepare for hyperdrive. We're heading to the Triple Scoop Nebula where all the stars taste like strawberry." Something miraculous happened then. Emma climbed onto the empty swing, her small hands gripping the chains with determination. She didn't ask for a push, but the invitation was clear in the way she positioned herself, feet dangling above the ground. Victoria stood, uncertain whether to approach. Before she could decide, the man gave Emma a questioning look, waiting for her permission. Emma nodded, a barely perceptible dip of her chin, and the man gave the swing a gentle push. "New crew member aboard," he announced officially. "What's your space rank, Commander?" Emma didn't answer, but she didn't stiffen or retreat. The man continued pushing both swings with practiced efficiency, maintaining his cosmic adventure narrative. "We're approaching the Candy Galaxy," he informed them seriously. "Home to the most dangerous sweet creatures in the universe, the chocolate chompers and the gummy grabbers." Lily squealed with delight. "Daddy, they'll eat our engines." "Only if they catch us," the man replied, pushing both swings higher. Victoria watched, transfixed, as Emma's body gradually relaxed. The girl's legs began to pump slightly, working with the momentum rather than remaining passive. A small sound escaped her, not quite a laugh, but a soft exhale of pleasure that made Victoria's heart stutter. The CEO of Chen Technologies, who commanded boardrooms and managed billion-dollar decisions daily, found herself rooted to the spot, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid to shatter whatever spell this stranger had cast that was slowly coaxing her daughter back to life. She watched as her silent child soared through the autumn air, guided by the calloused hands of a man whose worn boots and gentle voice had somehow found a path to Emma that 3 years of expensive specialists had not. Victoria Chen, who had built her empire by anticipating every variable, calculating every risk and controlling every outcome, suddenly found herself in uncharted territory. For the first time in years, she felt something dangerously close to hope. Victoria found herself returning to Lincoln Park the next afternoon, her executive assistant's voice still ringing in her ears. "Ms. Chen, you have the investors from Seoul at 3. She had never rescheduled 2 meetings in a row before. 20 years of relentless work had built Chen Technologies into a billion-dollar empire, and Victoria had never prioritized anything above it, not even herself. But today, something stronger than ambition pulled her back to that playground. Emma had slept through the night without nightmares for the first time in months. At breakfast, she'd drawn a picture, a crude rendering of 2 swings against a blue sky. Victoria had folded it carefully into her wallet between her platinum credit card and the faded photo of David in his surgeon's scrubs. The playground was emptier than yesterday, the autumn wind having picked up, scattering copper leaves across the pathways. Victoria's heart sank when she didn't see the man and his daughter. Emma's shoulders slumped almost imperceptibly as they settled on the same bench. "Would you like to try the swings anyway?" Victoria asked, keeping her voice casual. Emma didn't respond, but her gaze remained fixed on the empty swing set, the one where yesterday's magic had briefly flickered to life. Victoria checked her watch. 2:45. Perhaps they came later. She made a decision and texted her office. Move the Seoul meeting to tomorrow. Her phone immediately buzzed with concerned messages, but she silenced it and slipped it back into her coat pocket. At 3:15, Emma straightened beside her. Victoria followed her daughter's gaze to see the man and his daughter approaching from the east entrance. The girl, Lily, Victoria remembered, was skipping alongside her father, wearing a puffy jacket with worn cuffs that was at least 1 size too big. The man carried a small backpack and what looked like a thermos. "Hey, look who's here," he called warmly when he spotted them. No surprise in his voice, as if meeting again was the most natural thing in the world. "Lily was hoping our space commander would be back today." Lily bounded forward, stopping just short of Emma. "We brought hot chocolate," she announced importantly. "Daddy says it's the best fuel for space explorers." The man approached more slowly, giving Victoria a chance to really look at him. He was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps in his mid-30s. His brown hair curled slightly where it met the collar of his jacket, and there were laugh lines around his eyes. His clothes were clean, but clearly well worn, his boots scuffed from use. "I hope we're not intruding," he said, addressing Victoria directly for the first time. "I'm Marcus Williams, by the way, and this hurricane of energy is my daughter Lily." "Victoria Chen," she replied automatically, then added, "and this is Emma." She was used to people recognizing her name. Her face had been on the cover of Fortune twice, but there was no flicker of recognition in his eyes. It was strangely refreshing. "Nice to meet you both officially," Marcus smiled. There was something disarming about him, an authenticity that felt almost foreign in Victoria's world of calculated networking. "Would Emma like to join Lily on the swings again? I brought enough hot chocolate for 4 space travelers." Victoria looked at her daughter, expecting the usual withdrawal, but Emma was already standing, her small hand reaching out to take the one Lily had extended. The girls walked toward the swings, Lily chattering the entire way while Emma listened with that same intense focus. "Your daughter doesn't talk much, does she?" Marcus asked quietly as they followed the girls. Victoria tensed. "She doesn't talk at all, actually. She rarely discussed Emma's condition with anyone outside her doctors, not since her father died 3 years ago." Understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes. Not pity, Victoria had seen enough of that, but genuine compassion. "I'm sorry about your husband," he said simply. He was a trauma surgeon. There was a building collapse downtown. He went in to help and... Victoria paused, surprised at herself for sharing so much with a stranger. Marcus nodded, requiring no further explanation. That's a lot for a little one to process. They reached the swings, where Lily was already showing Emma how to pump her legs to go higher. Look, Daddy, I'm teaching her the rocket boost. Marcus poured hot chocolate from his thermos into 4 small cups he produced from the backpack. Sorry, they're not fancy, he said, handing one to Victoria. My matching china set is being used by the Queen today. The unexpected joke startled a laugh out of Victoria, a rusty sound she barely recognized. When was the last time she had genuinely laughed? For the next hour, Victoria watched as Marcus created an elaborate game involving the swings, slides, and jungle gym. They were no longer just playground equipment, but components of an interstellar spacecraft on a critical mission to save the universe from the dreaded vegetable vampires, creatures that, according to Lily, turned children into broccoli if they caught them. Emma didn't speak, but she participated, following Lily through the teleportation tube, the slide, and hiding from alien scouts behind the climbing wall. Each time she completed a mission, Marcus would solemnly award her an invisible medal for bravery, which Emma would accept with equal seriousness, carefully pinning it to her coat. Your daughter has a wonderful imagination, Victoria observed as they sat on a bench, watching the girls inspect the sandbox for alien footprints. Marcus smiled. Necessity is the mother of invention. We can't afford the latest toys or gadgets, so we make do with stories. He looked at her directly. I suspect you could buy Emma anything she wants. The observation wasn't judgmental, just matter of fact. Victoria nodded. Everything except what she really needs, apparently. The words slipped out before she could censor them, naked in their vulnerability. In the boardroom, Victoria never revealed weakness. But here, on a playground bench with a man who probably earned in a year what she made in a day, she felt the armor cracking. Kids don't need things, Marcus said after a moment. They need presents. Lily and I don't have much, but we have time together. The comment stung because it contained a truth Victoria had been avoiding. How many evenings had Emma spent with the nanny while Victoria worked late? How many weekends had been interrupted by urgent conference calls? What do you do, Marcus? She asked, genuinely curious about this man who seemed so at ease with himself. I'm a carpenter. Custom furniture mostly. Some restoration work. He flexed his hands and Victoria noticed the calluses, the small nicks and scars of someone who worked with his hands. Nothing glamorous, but it keeps a roof over our heads and food on the table. Before Victoria could respond, a small commotion from the sandbox caught their attention. Lily had apparently discovered a treasure map, a pattern in the sand, and was excitedly showing Emma how to follow it. To Victoria's astonishment, Emma was smiling. A small, careful smile, but definitely there. She likes Lily, Victoria whispered, almost to herself. Marcus nodded. Lily has that effect on people. She gets it from her mother. A shadow crossed his face briefly. At least that's one good thing Lily's mother left behind when she took off. Victoria turned to him, surprised by the revelation. You're raising her alone? For 3 years now. He shrugged. Lily was 2 when her mother decided family life wasn't for her after all. 3 years, the same amount of time Victoria had been trying to reach Emma through her silence. The same amount of time Marcus had been building a world of imagination and security for Lily after her mother's abandonment. The coincidence felt significant in ways Victoria couldn't articulate. As the afternoon light began to fade, Emma approached them, her steps measured but purposeful. She stopped in front of Marcus and reached into her pocket, pulling out a small red leaf. She held it out to him, her expression solemn. Marcus accepted it with the gravity the gesture deserved. Thank you, Commander Emma. Is this from the Red Planet? Emma nodded, the barest dip of her chin. I'll keep it safe, he promised, carefully placing the leaf in his breast pocket. Same time tomorrow for our next mission. Emma looked at Victoria, a question in her eyes that Victoria hadn't seen in years, a request, a want, a desire for something specific. Victoria felt a tightness in her throat. We'll be here, she said, making another decision that would upend her carefully scheduled life. As they walked back to their car, Emma's hand felt different in hers, not the limp compliance Victoria had grown accustomed to, but a presence, a pressure, a connection. Something had awakened in her daughter, something that had been dormant for 3 long years, and Victoria Chen, who had built an empire on calculated risks, found herself stepping into the biggest gamble of her life, the hope that a carpenter with worn boots and his exuberant daughter might somehow hold the key to bringing her own child back from the silent shadows. 2 weeks of playground meetings had fundamentally altered Victoria's life. Her executive team had grown accustomed to her leaving the office by 3 o'clock, something that would have been unthinkable a month ago. Her assistant had rearranged her schedule without comment, though Victoria caught the curious glances from colleagues who'd known her for years. Victoria Chen, notorious workaholic, was suddenly keeping banker's hours, but the changes in Emma were worth every raised eyebrow, every postponed meeting. The little girl wasn't speaking yet, but she was present in ways Victoria had forgotten were possible. She smiled more easily. She'd begun drawing constantly, elaborate pictures of spaceships and stars, of Lily and Marcus, of playground adventures. This morning, Emma had even allowed Victoria to join her tea party with stuffed animals, pouring imaginary tea with solemn ceremony. "Dr. Morrison wants to see us," Victoria said, as she adjusted Emma's scarf against the increasingly chilly Chicago wind. They were heading to the playground again, but Victoria had news to share. "He has an opening next Tuesday. He's very excited about the progress you're making." Emma didn't respond, but she didn't stiffen as she usually did at the mention of her therapist. Dr. Morrison had been working with Emma since the beginning, a kind, patient man who had never given up, despite years of sessions where Emma would sit in absolute silence, answering questions only with nods or headshakes. The playground came into view, and Emma's pace quickened slightly. Victoria scanned the area, her heart giving an unexpected leap when she spotted Marcus already there, working on something at one of the picnic tables. Lily was arranging pine cones in patterns on the ground nearby. "Commander Emma," Lily called, abandoning her pine cones to rush over. "You're just in time. The alien ambassador is arriving for the peace talks." Emma smiled and allowed herself to be pulled toward the pine cone arrangement, which Victoria now realized was supposed to be some sort of landing pad. Victoria approached Marcus, who was hunched over what appeared to be a small wooden object. "Working on your day off?" she asked, sliding onto the bench across from him. Marcus looked up with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Not exactly." He held up the object, a small wooden spaceship, beautifully crafted with intricate details. Thought the girls might enjoy a real spacecraft for their missions. Victoria examined the toy, impressed by the craftsmanship. The edges were perfectly smooth, the details carved with precision. It was the kind of handmade item that would sell for hundreds in boutique toy stores. "This is beautiful, Marcus." He shrugged, but she could see the pride in his eyes. "Just a scrap piece of cherry wood I had left over from a commission. Worked on it last night after Lily went to bed." Victoria had learned more about Marcus over their playground meetings. He operated a small workshop on the west side, creating custom furniture pieces that he sold through word of mouth and a modest website. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment above his shop, raising Lily with help from an elderly neighbor who watched her after school until he finished work. "You made this in one evening?" Victoria was genuinely impressed. "I don't have much of a social life," Marcus said with a self-deprecating smile. "Woodworking is how I unwind." He paused, running a hand over the smooth surface of the toy. "There's something about creating something tangible, something you can hold in your hands. In my line of work, you see the results of your labor immediately." Victoria thought about her own work. Endless meetings, strategy documents, quarterly projections, all important, all lucrative, but all essentially intangible. "I haven't made anything real in years," she admitted. "I move numbers from one column to another and call it productivity." Marcus studied her face, and Victoria felt suddenly exposed. No one in her professional circle would ever hear her express such doubts about her work. "You made Emma," he said simply. "That's more impressive than anything I could ever build." Before Victoria could respond to the unexpected compliment, Lily came running over, Emma following more slowly behind her. "Daddy, we need a communication device to talk to the aliens," Lily announced. "Their translator is broken." Marcus solemnly presented the wooden spaceship. "Will this help, Captain Lily?" Lily's eyes widened. "It's perfect." She took the toy reverently, then immediately showed it to Emma. "Look, it has tiny windows and everything." Emma traced the outline of the spacecraft with her finger, her expression one of wonder. She looked up at Marcus, and Victoria saw something new in her daughter's eyes: admiration. "There's a secret compartment for important messages," Marcus said, showing how a small panel slid open to reveal a hollow space inside. In case you need to transport top-secret information. Emma took the toy carefully, examining the hidden compartment with fascination. Then, to Victoria's surprise, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. With deliberate movements, she placed it inside the secret compartment and closed it. Marcus raised his eyebrows, but didn't comment on this development. That looks like important cargo, Commander Emma. Is it for the alien ambassador? Emma shook her head, then pointed at him. For me? Marcus clarified. Should I read it now or later? Emma hesitated, then pointed to Lily and the playground beyond. I understand, Marcus said seriously. Mission first. I'll read it after diplomatic relations have been established with the aliens. The girls ran off with the wooden spaceship, and Victoria found herself alone with Marcus again. She'd grown comfortable in these moments, these islands of adult conversation amid their children's play. Emma's therapist wants to see us next week, Victoria said, watching her daughter. He's very interested in hearing about these playground meetings. Is that a good thing? Marcus asked. Victoria nodded. Very good. Emma hasn't engaged with anyone like this in 3 years. Not her therapist, not her teachers, not even me sometimes. A thought occurred to her, one that had been forming over the past 2 weeks. Would you and Lily consider coming with us sometime? Not to the therapy session, she added quickly, but perhaps dinner afterward? At our home? The words hung between them, and Victoria realized she was holding her breath. This was a crossing of boundaries, from playground acquaintances to something more deliberate. Marcus looked surprised but pleased. We'd like that. Wouldn't we, Lily? He called to his daughter, who was now organizing an elaborate ceremony with pine cones and the spaceship. Would we like what? Lily asked, skipping back to them. Dinner at Emma and Victoria's house sometime next week, Marcus explained. Lily's face lit up. Like a real dinner party, with fancy plates and everything? Victoria laughed. We can use the fancy plates if you want. Can Emma show me her room? Lily asked excitedly. Does she have a bunk bed? I always wanted a bunk bed. No bunk bed, Victoria said, but she has a canopy bed that looks like a princess castle. A princess castle? Lily's eyes widened. Emma, did you hear that? You have a princess castle bed. Emma had joined them at the table, listening to the exchange with intense focus. At the mention of her bed, she nodded, then mimed drawing. Yes, you can show Lily all your art supplies, Victoria interpreted. Emma had an entire craft room adjacent to her bedroom, filled with art materials that had gone largely untouched until recently. The girls returned to their game, the prospect of a visit adding new energy to their play. Victoria watched as Emma followed Lily's lead in an increasingly complex narrative involving peace treaties and intergalactic trade agreements. You've done well with her, Victoria said quietly to Marcus. Lily, I mean. She's so confident, so imaginative. Marcus's gaze softened as he watched his daughter. She's had to be resilient. After her mother left, he paused. Kids adapt, sometimes better than adults. Emma didn't adapt, Victoria said, the familiar guilt washing over her. She just shut down. She's adapting now, Marcus pointed out. Look at her. Emma was helping Lily arrange the pine cones in a new pattern, her movements purposeful. As Victoria watched, her daughter picked up the wooden spaceship and made it fly in a gentle arc over their creation, mimicking Lily's earlier play. I've tried everything, Victoria confessed. The best doctors, therapists, schools. I even took a leave of absence the first year after David died, thinking Emma just needed more time with me. She swallowed hard. Nothing worked. She just retreated further. Maybe it wasn't about finding the right expert, Marcus suggested gently. Maybe it was about finding the right friend. Victoria considered this. Lily is good for her. And you're good for Emma too, Marcus added. Don't discount that. You're here, aren't you? You've rearranged your entire schedule to be here every day. Victoria felt a rush of gratitude for this man who saw her efforts rather than her failures. Thank you for saying that. The afternoon continued, the air growing colder as the sun began its early winter descent. The girls were engaged in what appeared to be the final diplomatic negotiations with the Pinecone aliens. Victoria checked her watch, surprised to see it was almost 5:30. We should probably head home soon, she called to Emma. It's getting cold, and we need to think about dinner. Emma looked up, her face falling slightly. She pointed to the wooden spaceship, then to Marcus. Oh, right, Marcus said. I still haven't read the top-secret message. He approached and knelt beside Emma. May I open the secret compartment now, Commander? Emma nodded solemnly. Marcus slid open the small wooden panel and carefully extracted the folded paper. He looked at Emma. Is it okay if I read it now? Another nod, more hesitant this time. Victoria moved closer, curious about what Emma had written, or more likely drawn, for Marcus. He unfolded the paper carefully. It was indeed a drawing. A crude but recognizable rendering of 4 stick figures holding hands. A tall woman with long dark hair, a tall man, and 2 smaller figures between them. Above the drawing, in the careful block letters Emma had learned in school, were the words, "Thank you for making me happy." Victoria felt her breath catch. Emma hadn't written anything in years, not words with meaning beyond mandatory school exercises. Marcus stared at the paper, then at Emma, his expression softening into something that made Victoria's heart tighten. "Emma," he said, his voice gentle but clear, "this is the most important message I've ever received from any commander. Thank you." Emma reached out and touched the paper, then pointed to Lily, then back at the drawing. "Yes, that's Lily there with you," Marcus confirmed. "And that's your mom, and that's me." Emma nodded, then did something that nearly stopped Victoria's heart. She took a deep breath, her small chest rising and falling, her lips parting slightly as if testing them. Everyone seemed to freeze. Victoria, Marcus, even Lily, who had wandered over to see the drawing. The silence stretched, filled with possibility. Emma's mouth worked silently, forming shapes without sound. Victoria knelt down to her daughter's level, scarcely daring to hope. "Emma?" she whispered. Emma looked at Marcus, then at the wooden spaceship in her hands. She traced the smooth edge with one finger, then looked directly into Marcus's eyes. "It's beautiful," she said, the words barely audible, rusty from disuse, but unmistakably there. "Thank you." Victoria's knees gave way completely, sending her sitting hard on the cold ground. Marcus's eyes widened, and Lily clapped her hands over her mouth. For a moment, no one moved, as if the slightest motion might shatter the miracle that had just occurred. Then Lily, with the natural wisdom of children, simply said, "I knew you could talk. Daddy, did you hear Emma can talk?" Emma turned to Victoria, her eyes filled with an emotion too complex for her 5-year-old face. "Mommy," she said, the word emerging more clearly this time. "He made me happy." Victoria Chen, who prided herself on composure in all situations, broke completely. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she pulled Emma into her arms, 3 years of silence crumbling around them. Over her daughter's shoulder, her eyes met Marcus's, filled with a gratitude too profound for words. Marcus, who worked with his hands creating beautiful things from raw materials, had somehow crafted a miracle from the broken pieces of Emma's heart. Dr. Morrison leaned forward in his leather chair, his expression a mixture of astonishment and professional curiosity. "And she's been speaking consistently since that moment at the playground? For 5 days now?" Victoria nodded, unable to suppress the smile that seemed permanently etched on her face these days. "Not constantly, and not with everyone. She's selective, but yes, complete sentences, questions even." She glanced through the observation window where Emma sat in the playroom, showing Lily how to use the specialized therapeutic toys Dr. Morrison kept in his office. The girls' heads were bent together over a miniature sandbox, their dark and light curls intermingling. "This is remarkable progress, Ms. Chen," Dr. Morrison said, making notes on his tablet. "In all my 35 years of practice, I've rarely seen such a dramatic breakthrough with selective mutism, especially a case as prolonged as Emma's. I've tried so hard for so long," Victoria said, her voice catching. "All the experts, all the approaches we discussed. Nothing worked. And then this man and his daughter appear in our lives, and within weeks—" "Don't discount your role in this," Dr. Morrison said gently. "You created the conditions for this breakthrough by being consistent, by showing up, by following Emma's lead rather than forcing interaction." Victoria thought about her decision to cancel meetings and rearrange her schedule, something that would have been unthinkable before. "I suppose I did change my approach. I'd like to meet this Marcus," Dr. Morrison said, glancing at the playground sketch Emma had drawn during their session today, another depiction of the 4 of them together. "He seems to have a natural instinct for what Emma needed." "You'll meet him tonight," Victoria replied. "He and Lily are coming to our home for dinner after this appointment." Dr. Morrison's eyebrows rose slightly. "I see. And how do you feel about that?" Victoria recognized the shift in his tone, from discussing Emma's progress to exploring Victoria's feelings. In their years of family therapy, she had sometimes been the focus as much as Emma, especially in discussions about her work-life balance and coping mechanisms after David's death. "I feel," Victoria paused, searching for the right word, "grateful, and something else I can't quite identify." Dr. Morrison waited, giving her the space to continue. "When David died, I threw myself into work even more than before. It was the one area where I felt competent, in control. Being Emma's mother, especially after she stopped speaking, made me feel helpless in a way I'd never experienced." Victoria watched her daughter through the window. Emma was showing Lily how to create patterns in the sand, her small voice audible even through the glass. "Now she's talking again, and I should feel nothing but joy. But there's also this ache." "Because you weren't the one who reached her," Dr. Morrison suggested gently. Victoria felt the truth of his words like a physical impact. "Yes," she whispered. "Marcus connected with her in weeks, while I failed for years." "That's a very harsh assessment, Victoria," Dr. Morrison said, using her first name as he did only when making an important point. "You didn't fail. You persisted. You brought Emma to therapy consistently. You tried everything recommended. You kept showing up. That persistence created the foundation that allowed this breakthrough to happen." Victoria wasn't entirely convinced, but she appreciated his perspective. "And this Marcus," Dr. Morrison continued, "do you see him becoming a regular part of Emma's life going forward?" The question carried implications that Victoria wasn't fully prepared to address. "He's been good for her," she said carefully. "And for you." Victoria met Dr. Morrison's knowing gaze and felt a flush creep up her neck. "We're focusing on Emma right now." Dr. Morrison smiled slightly but didn't press the issue. "Of course, I'd like to see Emma again next week, and perhaps you could invite Marcus to join for part of the session. With your permission, of course. I'm professionally curious about his approach with Emma." "I'll ask him," Victoria agreed. The session concluded, and they collected the girls from the playroom. As they walked to Victoria's car, Emma held Lily's hand, pointing out landmarks in the upscale medical district where Dr. Morrison's office was located. "That building looks like a giant glass spaceship," Emma told Lily, her voice still soft but growing stronger with use. "And over there is where they make the best hot chocolate in the whole city." Victoria exchanged a glance with Dr. Morrison, who nodded approvingly at Emma's animated conversation. "We'll see you next Thursday, Emma," he said. "Perhaps with all your crew members this time." Emma smiled shyly. "Marcus too?" "If he'd like to come," Dr. Morrison confirmed. In the car on the way to Victoria's Gold Coast home, Emma grew noticeably quieter, occasionally whispering something to Lily, but otherwise watching the city pass outside her window. Victoria caught her eye in the rearview mirror. "Are you okay, sweetheart? Tired from your session?" Emma shook her head. "Is Marcus coming to our house?" "He'll meet us there," Victoria confirmed. "He needed to close up his workshop first." Emma nodded, returning her gaze to the window. Victoria could sense her daughter's nervousness. This would be Marcus's first visit to their home, the first time Emma had invited anyone over since before David died. Victoria felt a flutter of anxiety herself as they pulled into the private driveway of her brownstone. She'd bought the historic home after her company's IPO 6 years ago, renovating it to blend its 19th century architecture with modern luxury. It was featured in Architectural Digest last year, 12,000 square feet of carefully curated elegance worth $8 million. How would Marcus react? Would he be intimidated? Resentful? Would it create a distance that would affect Emma's progress? "Your house is a castle," Lily exclaimed as they walked up the front steps. "Do you have a dungeon for dragons?" Emma giggled, some of her tension dissolving. "No dragons, but I have a secret passage." "You do not," Lily challenged, eyes wide. "I do too," Emma insisted. "In the library. I'll show you." Victoria smiled, remembering the secret passage Emma was referring to. A small door in the library's built-in shelving that led to a reading nook David had designed specifically for Emma. Their daughter hadn't used it since his death. Inside, Victoria watched the girls hang up their coats and remove their shoes without prompting. Emma had already taken Lily's hand and was leading her toward the grand staircase, eager to show her bedroom and the promised secret passage, when the doorbell rang. Emma froze, then turned toward the door, her expression suddenly vulnerable again. Victoria squeezed her shoulder reassuringly before going to answer it. Marcus stood on the doorstep, holding a small potted plant and wearing what was clearly his best outfit, dark jeans without any wear marks, a button-down shirt, and a navy blazer that looked slightly too big in the shoulders. His hair was neatly combed, and Victoria caught the scent of aftershave. "I hope I'm not late," he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. His eyes moved past her to take in the soaring ceiling of the foyer, the crystal chandelier, the sweeping staircase. "Right on time," Victoria assured him, stepping back to let him in. "Emma's been watching for you." At the sound of her name, Emma moved forward, stopping beside her mother. "Hi, Marcus," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus's face softened as he crouched down to Emma's level. "Hello, Commander. Mission Control sent me with special cargo." He held out the small plant. "It's a peace lily, just like my lily, but this one doesn't talk quite as much." Emma's face brightened as she accepted the pot. "It's beautiful," she said, echoing the first words she had spoken to him at the playground. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Marcus replied solemnly. "I thought it might like living in your home." Lily bounded down the stairs. "Daddy, Emma has a princess bed and a whole room just for art stuff, and a secret passage in the library. Can we see it? Can we?" Marcus laughed, the tension visibly leaving his shoulders. "If it's okay with Victoria and Emma." Victoria nodded. "Dinner won't be ready for another 45 minutes. Why don't you all explore while I check on things in the kitchen?" She watched as Emma led both Lily and Marcus toward the library, her daughter's voice gaining strength and confidence as she played tour guide. Victoria headed to the kitchen, where her housekeeper, Mrs. Patel, was putting the finishing touches on dinner. "They're here?" Mrs. Patel asked, straightening her apron. In the 13 years she'd worked for Victoria, first as a nanny when Emma was born, and now primarily as a housekeeper, Mrs. Patel had never seen Emma invite friends home. "They're exploring the library," Victoria confirmed, lifting the lid on a pot to check its contents. The rich aroma of Mrs. Patel's famous lamb curry filled the kitchen. "It smells amazing. I made extra naan for the little one," Mrs. Patel said, nodding toward the covered basket on the counter. "And I kept the spices mild, as you asked." Victoria had spent an unusual amount of time planning this dinner, wanting to make it special without being overwhelming. She'd even left work early to help Mrs. Patel with preparations, something she hadn't done since the dinner parties she and David used to host. 20 minutes later, Victoria found the trio in Emma's art room, where Marcus sat cross-legged on the floor between the girls, helping them build what appeared to be a model city using Emma's art supplies. Emma was explaining something about the downtown district, with more words than Victoria had heard from her in years. "That looks impressive," Victoria said from the doorway. All three looked up, and Victoria was struck by how much they resembled a familiar unit, as if Marcus had been joining them for creative play for years rather than minutes. "Emma's designing an entire city," Marcus explained, pride evident in his voice. "She's quite the architect." Emma beamed at the praise. "Marcus showed me how to make the building stronger by using triangles in the structure. Basic engineering principles," Marcus said with a modest shrug. "My dad was a construction foreman. I picked up a few things working summers with him." "Dinner's ready whenever you are," Victoria said. "We're eating in the small dining room tonight." She'd chosen the small dining room, which still easily seated 8, over the formal one that could accommodate 20. Even so, as they settled around the antique mahogany table with its Wedgwood china and sterling silver flatware, Victoria was acutely aware of the display of wealth it represented. Marcus, however, seemed neither intimidated nor resentful. He helped Lily with her napkin, complimented Mrs. Patel on the curry's aroma, and engaged Emma in conversation about her city design as naturally as if they dined together regularly. "Did you always want to be a carpenter?" Victoria asked as they began eating. Marcus considered the question. "Not always. I studied literature in college, actually. Had dreams of being a professor." This surprised Victoria. "What changed?" A shadow crossed his face. "Life. My dad got sick my senior year. Lung cancer from all those years breathing construction dust. I dropped out to care for him and take over his medical bills." He smiled ruefully. "Found I had a knack for working with wood, and it paid better than the adjunct positions my classmates were fighting over." "Do you regret it?" Victoria asked. "Not finishing your degree." Marcus glanced at Lily, who was showing Emma how to scoop up curry with a piece of naan. "Hard to regret choices that led to her," he said quietly. "But someday, when she's older, I might go back. I was only 3 classes short of graduating." Victoria felt a new respect for this man, who had sacrificed his dreams without bitterness. who had built a life of dignity and purpose despite circumstances that might have defeated someone with less character. The dinner continued, the conversation flowing more easily than Victoria had expected. Emma ate more than she had in months, occasionally offering shy contributions to the discussion. After dessert, Mrs. Patel's mango ice cream that had Emma asking for seconds, they moved to the living room where Victoria had set out board games. "Can we play Monopoly?" Lily asked eagerly. Victoria hesitated. "That might take a long time, sweetie. Maybe something shorter." "I like Monopoly," Emma said, her voice stronger than it had been all evening. "I'll be the banker." Victoria and Marcus exchanged a glance of shared surprise and pleasure at Emma's assertion. "Monopoly it is," Marcus agreed. "But I should warn you all, I'm unnaturally lucky with dice." They settled around the coffee table, Victoria and Marcus on the floor with the girls. As the game progressed, Victoria found herself relaxing in a way she rarely did with company. Marcus had a gift for gentle teasing that made everyone laugh, and Emma seemed to bloom under his attention, counting out money and reading community chest cards with growing confidence. When Lily landed on boardwalk and groaned dramatically, Marcus helped her count her remaining funds. "I think you might be bankrupted, Captain Lily," he said, making it sound like an adventure rather than a defeat. "What does bankrupted mean?" Lily asked, stumbling over the word. "It means you've run out of money," Marcus explained. "Game over for you, I'm afraid." Lily's lower lip trembled slightly. "But I don't want to be out. Can I have some of your money, Daddy?" Before Marcus could answer, Emma spoke up. "You can be my business partner," she offered, pushing some of her colourful bills toward Lily. "We can play together." Victoria felt her throat tighten at this spontaneous act of kindness. Emma, who had barely interacted with other children for years, was not only playing normally but showing empathy and generosity. "That's very nice of you, Emma," Marcus said warmly. "What do you say, Lily?" "Thanks, Emma." Lily scooted closer to her new partner, their heads together as they planned their next move. The game continued, but Victoria found herself watching the children rather than focusing on play. Emma was whispering strategy to Lily, occasionally giggling at something her friend said, looking more carefree than Victoria had seen since before David's death. Marcus caught her eye across the game board, and Victoria knew he was observing the same miracle. His smile held a shared wonderment, an acknowledgement of the precious moment unfolding between their daughters. When the grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 9, Marcus reluctantly began gathering the game pieces. "We should probably head home, Lily. It's already past your bedtime." Lily yawned but protested. "Can't we finish the game? Emma and I are winning." "We can continue next time," Emma said with surprising assurance, then looked up at Victoria. "Right, Mum. They can come back." The naked hope in her daughter's eyes moved Victoria deeply. "Of course they can," she confirmed. "Anytime." Marcus helped the girls put the game away, while Victoria went to retrieve their coats. When she returned to the living room, she found Emma showing Marcus the family photos on the mantelpiece. "That's my dad," Emma was saying, pointing to a silver-framed photograph of David in scrubs, his arm around a much younger Emma. "He was a doctor who helped people when they got hurt." "He looks like a kind man," Marcus said gently. "I bet he was very proud of you." Emma nodded solemnly. "He used to read me stories about brave girls who had adventures." She paused, then added in a quieter voice, "I stopped talking after he died because it hurt too much to say words without him hearing them." Victoria froze in the doorway, struck by this simple articulation of trauma that years of therapy had failed to uncover. Marcus knelt beside Emma, his expression compassionate but not pitying. "That makes sense, Emma," he said. "Sometimes our hearts hurt so much that our voices get stuck inside." Emma nodded, relief evident in her face at being understood. "But now I want to talk again," she said, "because of you and Lily, and because—" she glanced at Victoria in the doorway, "because I think my mom is lonely when I don't talk to her." Victoria couldn't stop the tears that sprang to her eyes. She crossed the room and knelt beside her daughter, gathering her into her arms. "I have missed your voice so much, sweetheart," she whispered into Emma's hair. "But I would have waited forever if I needed to." Emma hugged her back fiercely. "I'm sorry, Mommy." "You have nothing to be sorry for," Victoria assured her. "Nothing at all." Over Emma's shoulder, Victoria's eyes met Marcus's. His gaze held such gentle understanding that she felt laid bare, as if he could see every struggle, every doubt, every lonely night she'd endured since becoming a single parent. Later, after the girls had said their goodbyes with promises of another playground meeting tomorrow, Victoria walked Marcus to the door. They stood awkwardly in the foyer for a moment, both aware of some shift in their relationship that neither was quite ready to name. "Thank you for dinner," Marcus said finally, "and for including Lily. She'll be talking about that secret passage for weeks." "Thank you for coming," Victoria replied, "and for—" She gestured vaguely, unable to articulate the enormity of what his presence had meant to Emma, to both of them. Marcus nodded, understanding without words. "See you at the playground tomorrow? Same time?" "We'll be there," Victoria promised. After they left, Victoria found Emma in her bedroom, already in pajamas, carefully arranging the peace lily on her nightstand. She looked up when Victoria entered. "I like them, Mommy," she said simply. Victoria sat on the edge of the bed. "I like them too." Emma climbed under the covers, her expression thoughtful. "Marcus doesn't have as many nice things as we do," she observed, "but he seems happy anyway." Victoria smoothed Emma's hair back from her forehead. "Sometimes the most important things can't be bought," she said, the truth of the words resonating deeply as she spoke them. "Like voices," Emma said softly, "and friends." "Exactly like that," Victoria agreed, leaning down to kiss her daughter's forehead. "Exactly like that." As she turned out the light and left the room, Victoria realized that in her pursuit of building a technological empire, she had forgotten some fundamental truths about what made life valuable. A carpenter with calloused hands and his exuberant daughter had somehow managed to remind both Chen women of what truly mattered. And for the first time since David's death, Victoria felt something unfurling in her chest, a cautious, tentative hope that perhaps their broken family wasn't permanently shattered after all, but simply waiting for the right hands to help put the pieces back together. 3 months had transformed their lives in ways Victoria could never have anticipated. Winter had descended on Chicago, blanketing Lincoln Park in snow and driving playground adventures indoors. Yet the cold had done nothing to chill the warmth that had grown between their families. Emma's progress continued to astonish everyone. Dr. Morrison had declared it one of the most remarkable recoveries he'd witnessed in his career. Emma now spoke freely with Victoria, Marcus, and Lily, and had begun participating in class discussions at school. She still struggled with larger groups and strangers, but the silence that had imprisoned her for 3 years had decisively broken. Victoria stood at her office window, gazing out at the Chicago skyline as snow fell gently over the city. Her phone buzzed with a calendar notification: Emma's winter concert, 4 p.m. 6 months ago, the idea of her daughter performing in the school's holiday program would have been unthinkable. Victoria smiled, remembering Emma practicing her 2 lines as a snowflake at home, her voice growing stronger with each rehearsal. A knock at her door drew Victoria's attention. Her assistant, Michael, entered with a stack of documents. "The sole contract is ready for your signature," he said, placing them on her desk, "and the board wanted to know if you'll be calling in for the emergency meeting at 5:30. Victoria glanced at the calendar notification still illuminated on her phone screen. "No," she said decisively, "I won't be calling in. Emma's winter concert is at 4. Michael's eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded. "I'll let them know. They won't be pleased about delaying the Singapore decision." "The Singapore expansion has been in discussion for 3 years, Victoria pointed out. "Another day won't make a difference. They can proceed without me or wait until tomorrow." 6 months ago, such a statement from Victoria Chen would have been unthinkable. She had built her reputation on ruthless dedication, on being available at all hours, on prioritizing the company above everything. Even after David's death, she had returned to work within weeks, throwing herself into expansion plans, while Emma retreated into silence. Now Victoria closed her laptop and gathered her coat. "I'll be out for the rest of the day, Michael. If there's a genuine emergency, text me, but otherwise everything can wait until morning." As she rode the elevator down from the 47th floor of Chen Tower, Victoria reflected on the shifts in her priorities. She still loved her company, still took pride in what she had built, but the all-consuming nature of her ambition had mellowed into something more balanced, more sustainable. Her driver was waiting at the curb. "Lakeside Academy, please, James," she instructed as she slid into the back seat. Then, making a split-second decision, she added, "But first, can we make a quick stop at Williams Woodworking on North Darman?" 20 minutes later, the car pulled up outside Marcus's workshop. Through the large front windows, Victoria could see him bent over his workbench, focused intently on something small in his hands. Lily sat at a child-sized desk in the corner, tongue caught between her teeth, as she concentrated on what appeared to be homework. The bell above the door jingled as Victoria entered. Both Williams' heads turned toward her, their expressions brightening in nearly identical ways. "Victoria!" Lily abandoned her homework and rushed over for a hug. In the month since their first meeting, the little girl had become increasingly affectionate, her natural exuberance expanding to include both Chen women in her generous heart. "We didn't expect you until the concert," Marcus said, setting down his tools and wiping his hands on a cloth. He wore a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up, sawdust clinging to his forearms. There was a smudge of something dark on his cheek that Victoria found inexplicably endearing. "I finished work early," Victoria explained, returning Lily's hug. "Thought I might offer you two a ride to the school instead of making you take the bus in this weather." The real reason was more complicated, a simple desire to see Marcus before the concert, to share a moment of anticipation about Emma's performance. These small connections had become increasingly important to Victoria, who found herself inventing reasons for their families to spend time together. Marcus glanced at the clock. "That's really thoughtful. Let me just finish up here and close the shop." He turned to the workbench, carefully covering something with a cloth. "What are you working on?" Victoria asked, trying to peek past him. "No peeking," Marcus said with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "It's a Christmas gift." "For Emma," Lily stage whispered, bouncing on her toes. "Can I tell her, Daddy? Please." "It's a surprise, remember?" Marcus reminded her gently. "But yes, for both Emma and Victoria." Victoria felt a flutter of anticipation. In the months they'd known each other, Marcus had created several small treasures for Emma, a jewelry box with a hidden compartment, a set of wooden animals for her collection, a picture frame inlaid with different woods in a sunburst pattern. Each gift showcased not only his craftsmanship, but his growing understanding of Emma's personality and interests. As they drove to the school, Lily chatted excitedly about her role as stage manager for her class's upcoming performance. "I get to tell everyone when to go on stage," she explained proudly. "Miss Peterson says I have excellent leadership skills." Victoria caught Marcus's eye in the rearview mirror, sharing a smile at Lily's enthusiasm. These small moments of connection had become familiar, a private language developing between them. At the school they found Emma waiting in the lobby, already dressed in her snowflake costume, a white dress with crystal accents that caught the light when she moved. Her face lit up when she saw all three of them approaching. "You came early," she exclaimed, rushing toward them. She hugged Victoria first, then Lily, and finally, after a moment's hesitation, Marcus. These spontaneous displays of affection still caught Victoria by surprise, each one a gift after years of Emma's withdrawn behavior. "Wouldn't miss it for anything," Marcus assured her, his large hand gently patting her back. "I heard the snowflake dance is the highlight of the whole show." Emma giggled, another sound that still caused Victoria's heart to skip. "I'm just saying 2 lines, Marcus. It's not a big deal." "It's a very big deal to us," Victoria said softly, crouching to adjust Emma's costume. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart." Emma's expression grew serious. "What if I get scared and can't say my lines?" Marcus knelt beside Victoria, bringing himself to Emma's eye level. "Then you look at us in the audience," he said simply. "We'll be right there in the 3rd row, cheering you on." Emma nodded, visibly gathering her courage. "3rd row," she repeated. "I'll look for you." Their teacher called the children to line up for final preparations. Emma gave them one more quick hug before joining her classmates, her small shoulders squared with determination. As they made their way to the auditorium, Victoria impulsively reached for Marcus's hand. He looked surprised but pleased, his fingers intertwining with hers naturally, as if they'd been holding hands for years rather than minutes. The concert itself was everything a school holiday performance should be: earnest, occasionally off-key, and utterly charming. When Emma's class took the stage as dancing snowflakes, Victoria found herself holding her breath. Marcus squeezed her hand reassuringly as Emma stepped forward for her solo moment. For one heart-stopping second, Emma froze, her eyes wide as she scanned the audience. Then her gaze found them, and Victoria saw the moment her daughter's courage returned. In a clear, steady voice that carried throughout the auditorium, Emma recited, "Each snowflake is unique and special, just like each person in the world. We fall together to create something beautiful." Pride swelled in Victoria's chest, nearly overwhelming in its intensity. Beside her, Marcus was beaming as if Emma were his own daughter, his joy as genuine and unrestrained as Victoria's. Lily was bouncing in her seat, giving Emma an enthusiastic thumbs up. After the concert, they celebrated at Emma's favorite pizza restaurant, where both girls recounted every detail of the performance, as if Marcus and Victoria hadn't been there to witness it themselves. The evening was filled with laughter and easy conversation, the four of them settling into the comfortable rhythm they'd established over months of shared meals and outings. Later, after they'd dropped Marcus and Lily at their apartment above the workshop with plans to meet for a weekend sledding expedition, Victoria tucked an exhausted but happy Emma into bed. "You were wonderful today," she told her daughter, smoothing back her hair. "I'm so proud of you." Emma yawned, her eyelids growing heavy. "Mommy, can I ask you something?" "Anything, sweetheart." "Do you love Marcus?" The question caught Victoria completely off guard. She and Marcus had been carefully navigating their growing feelings, mindful of the girl's emotional well-being and the complex dynamics at play. There had been moments, a lingering touch, a private smile, a conversation that stretched late into the night after the girls were asleep, but they had yet to define what was happening between them. "Why do you ask that?" Victoria hedged, buying time. Emma's eyes were serious in her small face. "Because I think he loves you, and I think you love him too. You look at him the way you used to look at Daddy in the pictures." Out of the mouths of babes, Victoria thought, marveling at her daughter's perceptiveness. "Marcus is very important to me," she admitted carefully. "To both of us." "I think Daddy would like Marcus," Emma said with the simple certainty of childhood. "He makes us laugh again. Daddy always said laughter was the best medicine." Victoria felt tears pricking at her eyes. "Yes, he did say that, didn't he? So it's okay if you love Marcus," Emma concluded, her logic impeccable in its 5-year-old way. "Because Daddy would want us to laugh again." Victoria leaned down and kissed her daughter's forehead, overwhelmed by the wisdom and generosity of this small person who had endured so much. "When did you get so smart?" Emma smiled sleepily. "Lily says I'm the smartest person she knows, except for maybe her daddy." Her eyes drifted closed. "And you, Mommy. You're smart too." After Emma fell asleep, Victoria found herself in the library, curled in the window seat with a glass of wine, watching the snow fall over the city. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Emma was amazing today. You both were." Victoria smiled, typing back. "She asked me if I love you." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "What did you tell her?" Victoria took a deep breath and typed, "I told her you're very important to us." But if she'd asked if I could love you, the answer would be yes. The 3 dots appeared for what seemed like an eternity before his reply came through. "I'd like to talk about that. In person. Tomorrow?" "Yes," Victoria typed back. "Tomorrow." She set the phone down, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the city in a blanket of white, making everything old seem new again. The next evening found them in Victoria's kitchen, the girls engrossed in a movie in the den, while Victoria and Marcus prepared dinner together. They moved around each other with the ease of people who had done this dance many times before, passing ingredients, anticipating needs, working in comfortable synchronicity. "Emma told me about your conversation," Marcus said as he chopped vegetables, "about whether you love me." Victoria's hands stilled over the pasta she was draining. "She has a way of cutting straight to the heart of things, doesn't she?" Marcus set down his knife and turned to face her. "It's one of the things I admire about her. One of many things I admire about both of you." Victoria met his gaze steadily. "This is complicated, Marcus." "Is it?" he asked simply. "Two people who care about each other, two girls who adore each other. It seems remarkably uncomplicated to me." Victoria gestured around the kitchen, the imported Italian marble, the professional-grade appliances, the wine that cost more than Marcus probably made in a day. "Our worlds are very different." Marcus stepped closer. "Our worlds were different. They're not anymore. They haven't been since that day at the playground. I'm the CEO of a global technology company," Victoria reminded him. "You're a carpenter. Is that all we are?" Marcus asked softly. "Titles and occupations? Or are we a man and a woman who have helped each other heal, who have watched our daughters bring each other back to life, who have found something neither of us was looking for but both of us needed?" Victoria felt the last of her reservations crumbling. "When David died, I thought that part of my life was over. I focused on work, on creating security for Emma. I never imagined—" "Neither did I," Marcus said. "After Lily's mother left, I was convinced that chapter was closed. Then a little girl in a red coat stood watching us at the playground, and her mother looked at me like I was performing miracles just by playing with my daughter. He smiled. The miracle wasn't what I did for Emma, Victoria. The miracle was what you allowed to happen by being brave enough to let someone else help. Victoria hadn't thought of it that way, that her own courage in stepping back, in letting Marcus connect with Emma in ways she couldn't, had been the key that unlocked her daughter's voice. That perhaps the true strength wasn't in doing everything herself, but in recognizing when someone else held the piece that was needed. I was so afraid of failing her, Victoria admitted, of not being enough. You never failed her, Marcus said firmly. You persisted. You kept showing up. You created the conditions for her to find her way back when she was ready. Victoria recognized Dr. Morrison's words from months ago, now echoed by Marcus with the same conviction. Perhaps it was time she believed them herself. I do love you, she said simply, and it terrifies me. Marcus's smile was gentle. Good things often do. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. I was going to wait until Christmas, but now seems right. He placed the box in her hand. Victoria opened it to find a pendant, a small, exquisitely carved wooden heart suspended from a silver chain. The wood was polished to a warm glow, inlaid with tiny pieces of mother-of-pearl that caught the light. It's beautiful, Victoria whispered. It's cherry wood, Marcus explained, from the same piece I used to make Emma's first spaceship, the one that helped her find her voice. Victoria felt tears welling up. Marcus, I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give, he said gently. I just want you to know that my heart is yours, whenever you're ready to accept it. You and Emma have become family to us. The rest is just details. Victoria closed her hand around the pendant, feeling its solid weight, the smoothness of wood polished by hands that created beauty from raw materials. Hands that had somehow helped reshape her broken family into something whole again. From the den came the sound of the girls laughing, Emma's voice clear and strong, Lily's bubbling with natural exuberance, their daughters finding joy together, teaching their parents how to do the same. Victoria Chen, who had built an empire through careful calculation and strategic thinking, made the most impulsive decision of her life. She stepped forward, slid her arms around Marcus's neck, and kissed him. His response was immediate, his arms encircling her waist, drawing her closer. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Victoria rested her forehead against his. The girls will have questions, she said. Marcus chuckled. Lily's been planning our wedding for at least a month now. She's just been waiting for us to catch up. Victoria laughed, the sound free and genuine. Emma thinks her father would approve of you, that he'd want us to laugh again. Smart kid, Marcus murmured, brushing a strand of hair from Victoria's face. Takes after her mother. A timer dinged, reminding them of the meal in progress. With reluctance, they stepped apart to attend to dinner preparations, but something had shifted, settled, found its proper place. As they called the girls to the table, Victoria felt a sense of rightness that transcended the differences in their backgrounds, their careers, their circumstances. That night, after Marcus and Lily had gone home with plans to return the next day, Victoria stood in Emma's doorway, watching her daughter sleep. The piece Lily Marcus had given them at their first dinner together had thrived on Emma's windowsill, putting out new leaves and even a single white bloom. Like Emma herself, it had flourished under gentle care and patience. Life rarely unfolds as we expect, Victoria reflected. 3 months ago, she could never have predicted that a chance encounter at a playground would transform everything, that a carpenter with kind eyes and his exuberant daughter would help Emma find her voice again, would help Victoria remember how to truly live rather than merely exist. Sometimes the most profound changes come not from grand gestures or expensive interventions, but from simple human connection. From a father playing with his daughter on a swing set, creating magical worlds with nothing but imagination and love. From a child's laughter, breaking through years of silence. From the courage to open one's heart again, after loss has closed it. Victoria touched the wooden pendant now hanging around her neck, a tangible reminder of how something broken can be transformed into something beautiful in the right hands, of how sometimes healing comes from the most unexpected sources, of how love, once you allow yourself to feel it again, can rebuild what grief has shattered. And as she closed Emma's door softly, Victoria sent a silent message of gratitude to the universe for that autumn day when she had taken her mute child to the playground and frozen in wonder when a single dad had made her laugh and speak, changing all their lives forever in ways no one could have imagined. In the quiet moments that follow life's greatest challenges, we sometimes discover that our hearts, like Emma's voice, weren't permanently lost, just waiting for the right moment, the right person, to help us find them again. And when that happens, we realize that even our deepest wounds can become the foundation for our greatest joys, if only we have the courage to remain open to the possibility of healing. If you've ever felt broken beyond repair, remember Emma's story and know that sometimes your voice is just waiting for the right person to hear it. Someone who will listen, not just with their ears, but with their heart. That's the magic of human connection. It reminds us that we're never truly alone in our struggles, and that sometimes the family we need is the one we find when we least expect it. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Because just like Emma discovered, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is break our silence and let our true voice be heard.